Welcome to the Champs App podcast, where we help players and parents demystify the world of minor hockey development and recruiting for both girls and boys. On today's podcast, I talk with Matt Kelly, the head coach of the Providence women's hockey team. We discuss his growing up being a goalie and playing D1 hockey, how he got into coaching, and we go deep on the Friars women's team. I had a great time talking to Matt, so I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Before we start the podcast, I wanted to let you know about the app in Champs App. Champs App lets you create a free, beautiful online hockey resume to share with coaches, teams, and players. Your profile includes all the information coaches want to know to help decide if you are a player they want to keep on their recruiting radar. What makes Champs App unique is that you can then connect directly with college, prep, or team coaches, and they can then follow your updates. So when you add a new highlight video or a game to your schedule, they will automatically get notified of these changes to your profile. It's a really easy way to keep all your connections up to date. Just go to www.champs.app and click the sign up button to start your profile. And check out the links in the show notes to see a list of some of the college coaches already using Champs App that you can connect with. Stay tuned after the episode for more details on how easy it is to create your Champs App hockey resume. I'm very excited to have on the podcast Matt Kelly, the head coach of the Providence Friars women's hockey program. Originally from Walpole, Massachusetts, Matt was a goalie who played Division I hockey at Wayne State University. He then started his coaching career at Wayne State and then went on to Quinnipiac before spending 6 years at Clarkson, where he won a national championship. He then worked full-time with USA Hockey, where he served as head scout for the U.S. women's national team from 2014 to 2018. And then since 2018, Matt has been the head coach at Providence, where he just won his 71st game this past weekend. Welcome to the podcast, Matt. Did I get that right?
That's right. Thanks, Ray.
Welcome to the podcast. Really delighted to have you here. Been wanting to actually get you on for a while, but maybe why don't we start us off like we do all our guests and tell us a little bit about your hockey history and how you started playing hockey, and most importantly, why did you become a goalie?
Oh man, loaded question, huh? Yeah, obviously started playing as a young kid in Massachusetts. Played, whatever league it was back then. It was the Metro League back then, but now it's the EHF or Fed Hockey League. But I played for the South Shore Kings, Minutemen Flames, Middlesex Islanders growing up. I went to Catholic Memorial High School in Boston. Was there for my 7th grade year, 8th grade year, 9th and 10th. My 9th and 10th grade years won 2 national championships. So I was there. And then after my 10th grade year, I went out to the USHL. I played in Cedar Rapids for 2 years and Topeka, Kansas for a year. And then I ended up at Wayne State, like you mentioned. How I got into a goalie, probably because I was a younger brother. My brother and his friends always needed someone to shoot pucks at, and probably it was another way to keep me quiet too. So they would just shove me in the net and start ripping pucks at me.
And you're a pretty tall guy, right? And correct me if I'm wrong. You're almost 6 feet. Is that right?
I would say a little bit smaller than that. Maybe back in my recruiting days, that's what it said on the recruiting profile, but smaller than that.
Okay, and what made you such a good goalie? Did you play other sports? Like, were you a catcher in baseball? What made you so probably agile, obviously, to be a really good goalie?
Yeah, I think just being an athlete, really. Playing a bunch of different sports. Me and my brother, we played baseball. We're big into baseball. Played lacrosse. Obviously, my dad got us into golf as well. He was a golfer, so he got us into golf. We ran track, ran cross country. You name it, we kind of did it. And, obviously we didn't play basketball, but all our buddies growing up played basketball. So we'd be at the schoolyard playing basketball as well. So I just think being an overall athlete was a big part of, my success as a goaltender.
Gotcha. And how did you end up in Detroit at Wayne State University?
Just was recruited by them out of the USHL. At the time I was playing in Topeka and, started conversations with, Danny Brooks at the time. He was the assistant coach who recruited me there, and then he went on. He coached at Brown. He's kind of coached in a lot of different places. He's a scout now for the Capitals, but he kind of got that conversation going, and it was a place that went and visited and needed a goaltender, and it was just an up and coming program, and that's kind of how I ended up there, and it was a great experience.
Yeah, and unfortunately, they no longer have a women's program, so that's kind of disappointing.
No.
But you decided to. So first of all, you did really well there. You were a co-captain in your senior season, and you got a bunch of different awards. So So what made you such a successful kind of goalie at the time?
Well, I think any successful goalie, it's more about the team. The guys. There's a lot of people out there playing defense for you and helping you out. So obviously, I think that's a huge part of it. It's never, we're in a sport that's not an individual sport. It's a team sport, and there's a group of guys out there that were out there sacrificing, blocking shots, helping out when they could, picking up in front. So made my job easy to see pucks, especially being a little bit smaller than most goalies are now. So give a lot of credit to them, but. I would say it's just, like I said, just a good overall team effort.
Gotcha. And so correct me if I'm wrong, you almost immediately went and became a coach right after you graduated. So what was that process like, and how did you end up getting that job at Wayne State as an assistant?
Yeah. So when I was at school, I never thought I'd be a coach first, when I first was finishing up my hockey career, but obviously finished my 4 years playing at Wayne State, and then my fifth year, contemplating whether to go play, some pro or not. And at the time, I was really into my degree and wanted to make sure I finished my degree. So I stayed back for my fifth year to finish up some classes, and got a call that summer from the men's coaching staff there, wondering if I wanted to stick around, help out with their goalies. They didn't have a goalie coach at the time. So they were kind of like, hey, do you want to come on, help us with the goaltending? And I was, sure, I'd definitely do that. Fell in love with it right away. Just being around the guys. Obviously I was around a bunch of guys I played with, so some good friendships, but just being a mentor there, for the goalies and helping them out along their journey. And from there, Jim Fetter, who was the women's coach at Wayne State, he needed help with his goalies. So he kind of asked me if I wanted to, come to his women's practices and help out as well. So at the time I was loving what I was doing. So I said, sure, yeah, I'll absolutely help out. So he's probably the real reason, why I got into women's hockey. He kind of introduced me to it, and I started helping out with them. And again, it was just a great mentorship, and, had great success with those goalies there.
Gotcha. Okay. So you actually kind of answered a couple of my questions. One is how you got into women's hockey. And then the other piece of it is, what was it like coaching your former teammates?
Yeah, it was obviously, that was something, you got to learn to separate certain things, right? Because obviously you're kind of coaching them, but you're buddies with them. But I would say that the players that I was coaching, it was all on them. They were so respectful, and we just, again, it was just a great mentorship. We were good, but like obviously my goalie partner I played with my junior and senior year, he was just finishing up his senior year when I was helping him coach. So we were really good friends, and we had really good talks when we were goalie partners there. Just about the game and different situations. So I think that just carried on into when I was a coach, and helping him be successful. And, a lot of it's just, working on the mental side of the game too, making sure he was in the right frame of mind to compete on a daily basis.
Gotcha. And you moved on from Wayne State over to Quinnipiac. Was that because of any changes that were happening at Wayne State, or was that just a better opportunity at Quinnipiac?
Just being an East Coast guy, obviously wanted to get back home more so. And my wife, she's an East Coast person as well. So we wanted to get back out here closer to family. So it was just kind of one of those situations. But it was, again, Coach Fetter at Wayne State on the women's side. He introduced me to, at the time, it was Mike Barrett at Quinnipiac, who, again, needed an assistant coach who had a goalie background. And everything kind of fell into place, and it was a great opportunity. And I decided to take Mike up on that offer, and that's kind of really how I dove into the women's game.
Gotcha. And then Matt DeRoche, who was on the podcast previously, he decided we need to up our Matt quotient on the coaching staff. And so you moved over to Clarkson for several years, including winning a national championship. What was it like there? Obviously, Matt and his coaching staff have done an amazing job there, winning, I believe it's 3 national championships. So what was it like working in such a winning environment?
It was awesome. Obviously moving up to Clarkson, it was a great opportunity for me. And at the time, my wife, but she was my fiance, we were able to start a family up there, and we have super fond memories of Clarkson and, all those winning seasons we had and all the players that came through, the high level talent. It was a great opportunity to be up there, and obviously learn from Matt and his wife, Shannon. They were co-head coaches at the time. Taking me on as a younger coach and, again, helping me grow as a coach, as a recruiter, in all aspects of coaching. It was a great opportunity. And like you said, we had great success, and, obviously their success has continued. It's no shock to me. Obviously they're great people up there and great coaches.
And what made you decide to kind of move out of college coaching and go work at USA Hockey?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was just getting frustrated seeing all the Canadians win gold medals all the time. So had a little fire under me. So no, it was just another opportunity for me to kind of, grow in the coaching world and, expand kind of, I was kind of recruiting a lot at Clarkson. So I knew a lot of the player pool, and I thought I could, transition into that role and really help USA Hockey be successful and accomplish what they want. And that's winning gold medals. And obviously I was fortunate enough to have a great 4-year run, and obviously thanks to Reagan Carey, who at the time was the director of women's hockey at USA Hockey, and for giving me that opportunity and taking a chance on me.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you focused more on the under 18 team as opposed to the national team, but you worked with both. And do I have that right?
It was everything.
Okay.
Mostly it was women's national team. That's where I was really mostly involved in, but it filtered into the U22 and the U18 as well.
Okay. Gotcha. So I'm just curious. So like, what is the role of a scout in all these things? Is it looking at your own players? Is it scouting the other countries' teams? What's involved in that job that you were doing for 4 years?
So both, so obviously when we're over here in the US, we're evaluating our own players. We're going around, I was watching pro games, college games, going to all the U18 or U19 showcases. So I kind of had a good idea of what our whole player pool looked like. So evaluating them, helping them grow their game, giving those players feedback on what we want to see in their game grow or improve on. And then obviously when we're at a international tournament, you're now scouting opponents. So you're doing pre-scouts, watching other opponents. What are their tendencies? What are they trying to do? Their strengths or weaknesses. But at the same time, you're also continue evaluating your players to see how they perform at that elite level.
Gotcha. So given who our audience is for this podcast, we tend to be more on the younger side of things, and a lot of players who are more looking to make the under 18 team. I'm just curious, what is it that you would be looking for the under 18 team, and kind of what was that process of evaluation throughout the year?
Yeah, so obviously what we looked for is obviously skating ability. As you go up the ranks, even from the kids that we're recruiting as they're coming into college, like skating abilities first and foremost. You have to be able to skate. You got to be good on your edges. You got to be agile, because the game's only getting faster as you go up the ladder. So obviously that was a huge piece of what we were looking for. We wanted to play fast, so we wanted to find kids that that could really push the pace of a game. Second of all, I would say just their head. What type of, do they see plays? Can they make plays? Are they creating scoring chances for themselves? Are they creating scoring chances for their line mates? Because a lot of times you go out and you watch some of the younger age players, and it's easy to pick the one kid out at a young age that can skate through everyone and go get a scoring chance and all that. But it's like, how well can they move the puck? Because as you get to that international level, you got to be really good in small areas. You got to be able to find passing lanes, move the puck, have quick hands, and like I said, use your teammates. You can't just skate through everyone at that elite level. You need to play a team game.
Gotcha. And were you picking like the girls at the time who would go to the national camp, like the top 70 something or so players, or were you just focused on who the actual team would be, like of the 20 to 25 players that you would take to the under 18 championship?
Yeah, you said they had me involved in all parts of it, from development camp process and what that player pool looked like, into that top 70 camp as well. At the time, I think when I first got involved, it was like a 66, I believe it was. I think it was top 66, but I think it expanded since then. But yeah, I was involved a lot in that, because again, that's kind of as you start that process with that top 70, that's kind of like your little baby. And then you got to see that all the way through. You got to groom it. You got to make sure you're training it the right way. You're practicing it the right way. And you're getting all your on ice philosophies out there so the kids know what's the expectations are.
Gotcha. And are you starting that process basically in September all the way through until the camps the following July or
yeah, it was
August?
ongoing. It was ongoing, constantly watching, because obviously even kids that may be the younger ages that, were on the younger side of, the birth year to make it to the top 70, you still always want to have a good bucket of players that you knew that were coming through the pipeline as well. So you had to be educated on them as well. But yeah, that process started, every year, probably starting with development camps and then all the way through the fall and all these big tournaments that we all go to as college coaches. I was going there as a USA Hockey scout, just to track these players and, just trying to learn more about their game and what they can bring to the table.
Okay, beautiful. All right, I can go on and on about the USA Hockey process, but we need to move on to Providence. So maybe just talk a little bit about the school. From what I understand, it's about 4,200 undergrads. Obviously, I figured out that it's in Providence, Rhode Island. Just made the connection. And what I was really impressed with is that you guys are ranked #1 in regional universities of the North Universities. So obviously a pretty good academic institution. Maybe just talk about the school and what it's like to go to school there, and then we'll get into the athletics.
Yeah, so obviously, like you mentioned, it's a smaller school, but high academic profile, and it operates on a big time athletics mentality. Obviously, hockeys are in Hockey East, which is a premier league in college hockey, and then all other sports are in the Big East, which again is a big conference across the landscape of college sports. But yeah, it's just a great place to be. Great people. That's the thing that makes this place is the people here are phenomenal. From the president to administration to professors, all the way to other coaches here. It's a huge support system and just great people that want the most for our student athletes.
Gotcha. And then maybe just talk about the athletic facilities. I got Schneider Arena in my background here. It's a beautiful arena, seats about 3,000 and looks really pro level. So maybe just talk about the facilities and the athletic training capabilities that your teams get to enjoy.
Yeah, so here at Schneider, renovation, handful of years back now, but they renovated the whole bottom. So I'm sitting here actually in our video room. So this is kind of our classroom that we do a lot of team video in a couple times a week, things we want to improve on, tweak, or, if we're just watching opponents and how we want to, game plan against different opponents. Locker room totally renovated. We just redid our lounge. We have a great fueling station in our lounge now, which will probably be shooting some videos out on the internet pretty soon here because we're pretty excited about that. Obviously in our facility here, we have our own weight room that we share with men's hockey, and we have a stick handling shooting room as well that's open to the players throughout the day. And we also have a recovery room down here. So we have zero gravity chairs, Normatec boots, different massage chairs, different bikes and stuff like that. So really kind of unique room that we have down here at Schneider that we just opened this fall, like a couple weeks ago. So I know our players have been in and out of there, loving that. Obviously we in our training room, hot tub, cold tub area for recovery. Yeah, we got a lot of resources, a lot of bells and whistles that just allows our players to make sure they're healthy and able to compete at the highest level and compete for championships.
Awesome. And maybe talk a little bit about the history of the Providence women's team. It's been around since the mid-'70s. Cammie Knight went to Providence. We've had, as I mentioned right before we hit record, we've had 4 guests who played on the women's team, who are now coaching elsewhere in Division 1 or Division 3. And of course, you're my first guest who hasn't actually played on the women's team at Providence. Bob Duraney was a longtime coach. Maybe just talk about a little bit about the history of the program, because it's basically one of the most historic teams out there.
Yeah, a lot of history here, a lot of winning, a lot of elite high-level players, a lot of Olympians, like you mentioned. You can go on and on. Have a timeline upstairs in the up by the coach's office, and you just walk by there and you see all the phenomenal players that have walked through, this campus and have been a part of our program and our rich history. It's mind blowing. You mentioned Cammie, and, we have Sarah DaCosta and, Vicky Lamarillo, players like that, won gold medals in the first Olympics in 1998. And again, it's just, and even a ton of ex-Providence women's hockey players in the coaching world now, and helping, build the women's game and the growth of the women's game. So it's great to see so many of our alums, still involved in women's hockey and really doing great things.
Right. So now let's get to the most important question. So your colors are black, white, and gray. Do you think you need to mix in a little bit? Silver. Sorry, not gray. Sorry. Do you think you need to mix in a little more color for a little bit more pizzazz? I know once in a while you have a little red line included, but everything's kind of monochromatic.
Yeah, I don't know. They pop though. They're really nice colors. I know everyone always raves about how much they pop. So I don't know. We'll keep it the way it is.
They're very they're very noticeable when you see them, especially against on the background of the ice that you guys have. So it looks really nice. So maybe talk a little bit about your coaching staff. I know you have Ali Domenico, who you actually let coach for Canada, which is a little awkward, I'm sure, and then Nicole Renault, who just came in from LIU. So maybe just talk about your coaching staff.
Yeah, so Allie's been with me since I came in. So we're going on our 5th year together. And just obviously when I first hired her, she was someone that really jumped off the page. And I started thinking about people that I wanted to build my staff with. Been around the game a long time, coached at a bunch of different places, different levels. Is a great hockey mind. And again, she's got great experience, with Hockey Canada, winning world championships most recently, but obviously winning gold back last year at the Olympics. So again, just is really involved in that. She's been involved with the U18 process there as well. So yeah, super excited to have her back on staff, as well this year. Obviously it was having her away last year. It was tough to see her go, but it was a great opportunity for her and her coaching career. But yeah, super bright future. And like I said, just a really, really smart hockey mind. And again, just, I think what you probably hear me say a couple times here, our whole staff is just, we get along so well. We're like all best friends. We hang out on the weekends together. We're here, we're there, everywhere. Whether it's, hanging out at my house or going over to Nicole's place, Allie's place, whatever it may be, we enjoy being around each other, which is fun. And it makes coming to work fun too.
How do you divide responsibilities?
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Keep going.
No, I was just going to mention Nicole as well. Obviously, she came on last year. Obviously during COVID, it was only me and Allie. We were on a hiring freeze, but we were able to get her on board last year. And again, probably one of the best young up and coming coaches I think out there. Had a great career at Syracuse, went on and played pro for a little bit as well. And I think she comes in here and she brings a ton of energy, a ton of knowledge. And I know our players really, really enjoy having her around as well.
Gotcha. Okay, so now I'll ask my question, which is how do you divide responsibilities between the three of you, between recruiting, special teams, forwards, defense, goaltending, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so it's really nice, I should say, because we have all positions covered. I was a goalie, Allie was a forward, Nicole was a defenseman. So it's interesting, all our perspectives we bring to the conference table upstairs to talk about at times. And so that's nice. But I think all three of us are involved in a lot of the decisions that we make. I like being a part of that, and rather than just having one person do one thing, one person do another thing. I think at this level there's so much going on, like you mentioned, even recruiting. We're all three are heavily involved in recruiting. I think that's what you got to be. At the end of the day, as a head coach, I want to be out there and I want to see what the player pool looks like, or I may have something different in mind that I want to add to our roster or something like that. So I'm heavily involved in the recruiting as well as Allie and Nicole. And even with the game planning, like I said, we're all involved. I want everyone to be in those conversations. So part of my job is growing my assistant coaches as well. So I want to make sure we're not limiting someone to only doing certain things and not other things, or not being involved in other things. So that's kind of how we operate and run around here.
And you guys play in Hockey East, which is great. but a very competitive league. And, you've had some really good teams, but it's hard for you to break through at the top end. So, what are you doing to kind of get that team over the hump and kind of make it to the tournament?
Yeah, so obviously you hit the nail on the head. Obviously, our league's been very competitive over the last handful of years I've been here. It's every game's a grind and nothing's for granted. And but that's the way you want it to be, right? You want it to be tough. You want to challenge your kids because that's what's going to prepare you once you get to the national tournament to be successful. And I think our league definitely does that year in and year out. To get over the hump, obviously, we got to keep working, right? Keep working, keep developing our players. That's a big thing we talk about around here is development. We got to develop, we got to get on the ice, we got to do skill work with our kids. We got to, make sure, we're doing extra video sessions with our kids so they're aware of, areas they need to improve on, grow on, but also show them areas that, they're doing great in and they're excelling in. And we want them to keep excelling in those areas to help our team be successful, but also help them be successful because we have a lot of kids that want to, play on their national team and stuff like that. So that's our duty to help grow and develop them so they can accomplish those dreams and aspirations.
Gotcha. And what does it take to be successful on a Providence team? So, you have, a freshman class coming in now, over the next 3 or 4 years, how do you expect them to develop over that period of time? And what do you do to help make them successful?
Yeah, I think our staff, obviously, first and foremost is, got to compete, right? Nothing's easy at this level. So you got to be willing to compete, put your nose to the grindstone. But then, and everyone's different. Everyone has a different development model, depending on what we see need fit, whether it's footwork, whether it's, hand shot, whether it's little things that are going to create more time and space for them offensively, so everyone's different. So there's not one plan we roll out for everyone to get better. It all depends on kind of, what each players bring to the table and how they adjust, because there's an adjustment period here too. It's not just because you were good at, U19 hockey, it doesn't always immediately transfer to college hockey because the level is so high in college hockey. So, and sometimes to develop and be successful at a level, it's just, being able to bounce back from some setbacks and some obstacles. And, the mental side of the game is huge at this level because you're going to have, there's going to be difficult situations that, maybe you've never had to go through. And how you react to those and how you adapt and adjust and improve your game, because you have to improve your game. You got to be willing to grow your game. We talk about that a lot, like own your craft, be a part of that growth mindset. You want to grow your craft every day, get better.
Beautiful. So before we start getting into the recruiting questions, I got one last coaching question is, what do you like behind the bench during a game? So I know you had, an overtime game this weekend for your first game of the week of the season against St. Lawrence University. What were you like, in those last 10 minutes of the third period and the start of overtime?
I'm pretty calm. I'm not like too over animated or anything like that. I'm usually pretty calm. And, at that point, all the preparation's done, so the kids all know what the expectations are and they know what we're trying to accomplish in all certain situations. So, pretty calm and let them just play, because if you're out there yelling and screaming and being animated, sometimes that can tense up the players in front of you. And the last thing you want to do is have them be tense. You want them to be loose and just play free.
And do you think that, you being a former goaltender kind of actually helps you kind of remain calm and kind of, just look at seeing the whole ice and the whole big picture for this full 60 minutes?
I don't know, maybe. Yeah, maybe. I never even thought about it that way, but yeah, it could be play a little part of it.
Okay, so now I'm going to move into kind of some of the recruiting side of things and relate to goaltenders. I noticed that you carried 4 goaltenders last year, and I believe you're carrying 4 goaltenders this year, but only a couple of them played last year. So kind of what is kind of being your philosophy around just goaltending? Because I do always have to ask a goaltending question on every podcast.
Yeah. And with COVID, obviously, everyone getting an extra year. That's why you kind of have 4. And we actually have 3 this year. We had 4 last year, 3 this year. But yeah, philosophy in goaltending is simple. Stop the puck, right? That's at the end of the day, that's what you got to do, and everyone's different. with goalies, and I do all our skill work with our goalies, and I'm really big on not making everyone a cookie cutter of, this is what we want. I try working with everyone's athleticism, everyone's abilities, everyone's uniqueness that they bring to that position. And I think that helps our goalies be successful because they can kind of just be themselves a little bit. And then we'll tweak certain things. And we talk a lot about different situations as well, how to read situations and what to look for in certain situations. So that can determine, your depth, your where you need to place a rebound or something like that, or even just the basics of just, smothering pucks, smother and deflect. Smother and deflect pucks. And if you do that well as a goalie, you should be pretty successful.
Beautiful. And moving over onto the skater side of things, what is it that you're looking for when you're out recruiting these days? Over the summer and the fall, big recruiting periods. What is it that you're looking for the players that you might consider recruiting?
Yeah. So I think, a friend of mine who is a scout, and, he always talks about, the H's, and he calls them 5 H's, but there's one H that sometimes I don't really focus too much on in women's hockey, but he talks about head, hands, heart, and heels. So obviously your head, how well you think the game, how well you see the game. Hands, obviously your shots included in that as well. How good are you in small areas? Heels are your footwork, your skating ability. And heart, like, what do you have? Are you competitive? You're looking to compete. You're willing to do the tough stuff, the gritty stuff, willing to get to the tough areas. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, rather than, going on forever about what we look for. That's kind of, like I said, in a nutshell, what we're going out and watching for and trying to identify.
No H for hitting?
Well, the other one was height, but I feel like sometimes in the women's game that can kind of vary a little bit. So, but obviously, if you do have the size and you can do all those other things, that's
right, well, I don't know if Kendall Coyne Schofield would agree with that last H. So yeah, makes a lot of sense.
That's why sometimes I don't look too much into that one.
Perfect. All right, and in terms of advice for parents, so you talked about like the 5th year for parents and players that are kind of going through the process now. Like, what's going on these days, and what advice do you have for those folks that are kind of right in that kind of tweener between COVID rule changes and then the new rules coming in with the 2024 2025s, where there might be no more grad students still lingering from COVID?
Yeah, so I'd say there's a lot to tell a parent potentially, but obviously be patient. I know everyone's path is different. Everyone's at a different point of the recruiting process and where they're at, and but obviously with the COVID stuff going on, and I think more people in our game have been more open to taking that gap year to find the right place and the right fit for them. Rather than just taking whatever's out there. I think more people have been open-minded to that, which I think is a good thing right now. And it's never hurts to have another year of development and coming into college a little bit older, a little bit mature. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is just until we get out of this, everyone getting another year, is just the patience of it. And hopefully your daughter keeps working and keeps improving and finds a spot that she's happy with and that the parents happy with too.
Gotcha. And now we're recording this right at the end of September. That'll come out in early October. Where are most D1 teams in their recruiting process for their, I guess mostly 2024s, because I think a lot of the 2023s are already committed. But where are you kind of in the process in terms of on-campus visits, still looking at players, et cetera, at a more macro level, not necessarily specifically Providence?
Yeah, I would say everyone's probably in a different spot. Some people probably have a handful of commits, some probably don't have any, some have a couple maybe. So obviously every university college is at a different spot, same as with the players and their parents. They're probably all at different spots too. But yeah, I would say whether you have players committed or not have players committed, everyone's in the thick of it. Official visits are rampant right now, just trying to get these young ladies to campus, because as we know, the hockey schedule is super hectic and crazy, and finding weekends that match with your schedule, because we're in season now. So it's, yeah, everyone's in the thick of it, trying to round out their classes and you know, and then start moving on to the 25 group.
Gotcha. And so, you know, you've done an amazing job at like banging right through all my questions. So if someone wanted to get on your radar and kind of, you know, be seen by Providence and just at least, you know, hopefully if, you know, maybe if they're coming to your neck of the woods to play some games, how did they get seen by you and kind of start the communication?
Yeah, obviously email is usually the easiest. You know, send an email, let us know obviously who you are, where you're from, grad year, just so we know. And then your schedule, you know, where you're going to be, what events you're going to be at. And if you even know more detail about your schedule and what games you're going to be at, let us know too, because obviously with streaming now and live streaming, there's tons of opportunity to get seen, whether we're in a building or not in a building. We're watching. So that's the great thing that COVID brought to us, was the live streaming of games, or the going back on Live Barn and watching.
Actually, I do have one last question to ask you before I let you go, which is one thing I was surprised at when I've been talking to a couple of coaches at some events recently is how many days of the year do you think you're on the road actually scouting and watching players?
I might not want to know that. I know my wife counted one time when I was at USA Hockey, and she didn't tell me till I was done, and I was blown away.
Is it? I'll give you a number, and you tell me if you think it's above or below it. 100 days a year.
100 days a year. Me personally, or just my staff in general?
You personally.
Me personally, probably say around that. I would say maybe assistant coaches might be a little bit higher.
Okay. Yeah, that's why I was curious, because I didn't realize, man, it's basically a 30-year life is out recruiting. So I thought that was really helpful. All right, Matt, thank you so much. It was great to learn so much about Providence and obviously your background and definitely your advice for players who are kind of going through the recruiting process. So thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
Ray, anytime. Thanks. I appreciate having me on.
I really want to thank Matt for coming on the podcast. It was great to learn about his hockey coaching journey and go into detail the work he did with USA Hockey. Also, I really enjoyed hearing about the Providence women's hockey program and his perspective on the current recruiting environment. If you want to learn more about the Providence women's team or to connect with Matt, you can find links in the show notes to the team website and Matt's Champs app profile. Thanks for listening to today's episode. Before you go, I wanted to share more about the app in Champs app. If you've listened to this podcast before, you know I spend a lot of time talking with coaches, parents, and players about the hockey recruiting process. One of the key questions that people want to know is, how does a player get noticed by college coaches? While there are many ways to be discovered, the easiest way to get on a college's radar is to send a coach an email and provide them all the information they need to assess if you are a player worth keeping their eyes on. That's where the app part of Champs app comes in. Champs app was designed based on all the conversations and feedback we received about the recruiting process, and we've built a tool to help players and coaches connect with a ton of the information they want to know. It all starts with creating a free, beautiful Champs app profile. After that, there's some pretty magical things that can happen to help make the recruiting process a little less overwhelming. Your Champs app profile includes all the basic academic, personal, and athletic information coaches want to know. Then, by including video, schedule information, and your coach's contact details, colleges can easily start their evaluation process. You just copy and paste your personalized link and send it to coaches so they can see your public player profile without even having to log in or create a Champs app account. Or you can connect directly with coaches on Champs app. More and more coaches are creating their own Champs app profiles and connecting with players themselves every day. Now coaches can have all the information they need to assess where you might fit in their recruiting plans. Even better, college coaches can track your progress throughout the winter and showcase seasons, because as you make changes to your profile, coaches will get notified to your updates. And in the future, we will be adding even more amazing features to improve your visibility to the recruiting process and hopefully increase your odds of success. If you want to see what a player or coach profile looks like before you start your own, look in the show notes to see some examples. My kids and I have used Champs app for their recruiting process. In fact, my son was invited to a AAA tryout thanks to his Champs app profile. So go to www.champs.app and start your player or coach profile. It only takes about 15 to 20 minutes to complete most of your key information. Good luck, and please let us know how it helped with your recruiting journey.